Welcome to the EOC position-specific training for the operations section. Today's training is primarily meant to provide you with an overview of the functions of the operations section, teach you how each EOC section interacts with the operations section, familiarize you with position-specific responsibilities, go over what specific positions your position will interact with, and finally provide you tools to help you carry out your position responsibilities. Essentially, this course is meant to provide you as many tools as possible to carry out your position responsibilities. Upon completion of this training, you will have an understanding of the role and responsibilities of the operations section within the EOC, better understand position-specific responsibilities within the operations section, how each operations section position interacts with other EOC positions, as well as understanding what EOC forms the operations section is responsible for. So let's do a little refresher on the EOC structure with some of the information we learned within EOC 101. So remember that there are 5 functions within the EOC. We have the management, operations, planning, logistics, and the finance admin sections. Remember that this is a NIMS and ICS concept, therefore it's mirrored at every level of the response from local to the state. The positions are dependent on the response level. Not all positions will be staffed in an event. The EOC structure is expandable and flexible and will work off of the principle of activating only what we need. Management and planning are sections that are normally staffed. And remember that the section coordinators or the general staff, that second row there, is responsible for all the work in their section if the unit leaders below them are not stood up. So this section just shows a little bit about the roles and responsibilities within each section of the EOC. EOC management section is developing that overall incident objectives and strategy. They approve the demobilization, and they're signing off on those EOC action plans. Operations is assisting in developing that strategy. They're identifying, assigning, and supervising those resources needed to accomplish those objectives that EOC management section came up with. Planning section is working on those status reports. They're managing that planning process, or that planning P, and they're producing the EOC action plan. Logistics, of course, is ordering those resources, and they're also developing an internal transportation and communications plan within the EOC. So when I talk about internal transportation, that means they're working on getting the resources that they ordered for requests made by the field. They're getting it from point A to the field. So we're not talking about transportation like in the essential support function 1. We're not talking evacuations or anything. This is talking internal logistical transportation. And then our finance section, admin section, they're the payers. They're going to be keeping track of those costs. They're going to be ensuring that our EOC action plan is within the financial limits established by the EOC manager or the policy group. And they're developing contracts and paying for those resources as well. All right, let's dive a little bit deeper into the operations section. The operations section acts as the primary point of contact between the county EOC and the municipal EOCs, and in some incidents may be linked directly to Field Incident Command. Unit leaders assigned to the functional branches within the EOC operations section will receive incoming situational reports, department status reports, resource requests, and field intelligence. That incoming information will then be routed to the appropriate EOC section. Now, the EOC operations section will vary depending on the need. As you can see in this slide, we have the traditional structure for the operations section. They're broken down by branch, fire, law, medical, public works, and we can add on whatever the incident requires. We could have a hazmat branch. We could have any kind of branch that we would need. So note that these positions, they may be activated at a one-person level, or they can be activated as a unit or a group. It all depends on the level of activation, the work needing to be accomplished, and the number of personnel needed. Now, this traditional format is not typically used by state and federal government, so those are going to follow more of a functional format, which we will discuss later in the next slide. So here you can see a comparison between the traditional and the functional structure of the operations section within the EOC. The functional structure, you start to see more boxes. Those are aligned with our emergency support functions, also known as ESFs. Eau Claire County, we have 15 ESFs. Under the operations section, you'll notice, though, that there's a few missing. ESF 5 and 7 are considered part of planning and logistics. ESF 14 is part of our recovery, and our ESF 15 is our external communication or public information. Several years ago, we switched our emergency operations plan, and the structure started to align with the state and federal emergency plans more closely. In 2019, FEMA developed the Community Lifelines construct to increase effectiveness in disaster operations and better position agencies to respond to catastrophic incidents. These lifelines are the most fundamental services in the community that, when stabilized, enable all other aspects of society. When they're disrupted, rapid service and reestablishment is required. During the initial response, priority efforts focus on stabilizing these community lifelines. In 2023, Eau Claire County began to align their ESFs with these lifelines. So let's give an example. These lifelines, as you can see here, are in blue. Blue means administrative. When we start to talk about red, yellow, and green, red is unstable, yellow is fix in progress, and green is stable. So if we give the example of a water treatment, wastewater treatment plant, it's been affected. There is no drinkable water to a community. So if there is no fix in place, we just discovered this, that lifeline, water systems, will turn red. It is unstable, no fix yet. Now we get together, we activate the EOC, we start to talk about ways that we can get the public drinkable water. We're going to activate our food, hydration, and shelter lifeline. And we're going to open some points of distribution so that we can get water out to the community. We're going to issue boil orders. Now our lifeline can turn yellow, and we're going to activate that food, hydration, and water or shelter lifeline, and that's going to turn yellow as well. Once we have a fix in place, everything is now stable, we can shut down those points of distributions. Now we can change those statuses to green. They're stable now. So that's how we move through being unstable, red, to yellow, there's a fix in place, and green being stable. We will have more training coming up for Community Lifeline, so stay tuned to the Emergency Management Training calendar. Let's talk about some of the key skills that are needed for those that are assigned to the operations section. Personnel assigned to the operations section are usually those who do similar jobs in their day-to-day line of work. This means they already have extensive knowledge of specific systems, which can include mutual aid systems, mutual aid agreements, legal mandates and restrictions, and available equipment, where that includes where it should be ordered from, and where they work with logistics on this. The EOC will attain most of its incident information from the operations section. Other sections are monitoring, ordering, tracking, and such from information that comes into the EOC from the operations section. Since most of the personnel work day to day with some portion of what they are assigned to, they have the experience level which cannot simply be taught to any person who doesn't normally work that arena. Example, we wouldn't assign a public works person to oversee the safety and security lifeline. Some of the things that we can do pre-event to prepare for an incident is establishing those clear lines of communication between the field and the EOC. What methods are we going to utilize to communicate with the field? What channels and frequencies are they going to be using? And can we pre-create any communication plans? In addition, what mutual aid is out there? Has this been pre-identified? What's the process to request mutual aid? These are all things we can do before an event to ensure that we're prepared and can quickly respond to an incident. So an incident's occurred. What do? We follow an incident planning process, also known as the Planning P. This sets up our meeting schedule, what we need to do, and takes us round and round until we close out the incident. So the stem of the P is always the incident occurs, we're going to activate the EOC, and we're going to get our initial briefing from the field. Then we start to establish our incident objectives. We go into tactics, we go into strategic meeting, we go into a planning meeting, we get our EOC action plan hammered out, we get that approved by the EOC manager, we do a briefing for the operational period, we start the new operational period, and we move on to the next operational period. So we're always planning one operational period ahead. Some of the meetings that you may see are the initial briefing meeting, also shown in step 3. The purpose of this is to provide information on current on-scene operations, agency and jurisdictional concerns, and establish the EOC organization. Outcomes from this meeting are going to be the organizational structure and a common operating picture. That meeting will occur only once at the beginning of the incident. We start to get into objectives update, policy confirmation meeting, could be called the CNG meeting, Command and General Staff. The purpose of this is to develop those EOC objectives, support on-scene and EOC operations, and confirm policies. The outcome of this meeting will have reviewed policies for managing sensitive information and intelligence, and the information flow into and out of the EOC. EOC objectives are going to be updated and those policies confirmed. Step 5, you'll see the resource meeting, also known as the tactics meeting. The purpose of this meeting is to develop a unified EOC strategy, support emergency management and on-scene operational resource needs, and the operations section coordinator will outline strategies to meet operational needs. The outcome from this is going to be identifying those resources needed to support emergency management and field needs to meet the objectives for the next operational period. You're also going to be filling out the EOC 215, the operations worksheet. In step 6, we see the planning meeting. The purpose of this meeting is to validate the EOC action plan components, starting with the objectives, the policies, authorities, resources, etc. The outcome is the validation of that EOC action plan, and the planning section coordinator begins coordinating the preparation of the action plan documents. In step 9, you'll see the EOC briefing meeting, also known as the operational briefing. The purpose of that is to brief oncoming shift of the EOC action plan and the status of any on-scene operations. We want the oncoming shift to understand the EOC action plan and the situation that they need to execute. Following that EOC briefing, we're just going to continue to support the field. So we're going to monitor those ongoing field operations, continue to exchange information, and continuously evaluate the progress against those objectives that we created. And if any adjustments are needed, we get those approved by the EOC manager in coordination with the planning section coordinator, logistics section coordinator, and finance section coordinator. The operations section coordinator is a member of the EOC manager's general staff, and they oversee the coordinating of all emergency response operations via the implementation of the EOC action plan. They're responsible for understanding the current situation, establishing priorities, predicting probable resource needs, preparing alternate strategies for procurement and resource management, and coordinating all requests for mutual aid and other operational resources. The operations section coordinator is going to activate organizational elements within the operations section as needed. They're going to monitor those section activities continuously, modify those as needed. They're going to determine the section unit staffing and order and release the staff as necessary. They're going to provide regular section status reports to the EOC director, ensure that the planning section is provided with status reports, review suggested list of resources to be released with the logistics section prior to their release, attend and participate in any EOC action planning meetings, authorize resource requests from the units, and forward critical resource requests to the EOC manager or logistics section chief for approval. They're going to ensure all operations section resources are tracked and accounted for in cooperation with the planning section, as well as resources ordered through mutual aid. They're also going to ensure the operation section transportation requirements and in support of resource operations are met. They're going to meet regularly with the operations section staff and work to reach a consensus on the objectives for the forthcoming operational period and ensure that they are carried out effectively as per the EOC action plan. They're also going to determine if there are mutual aid requests for the operational section functional areas and initiate coordination with those appropriate mutual aid systems as required and request their representation in the EOC. They're going to also provide copies of the daily incident reports to the documentation and resource unit of the planning section at the end of each operational period. As you can see, the operations section coordinator interacts with multiple personnel within the EOC. They are responsible for several forms, including the EOC 204, which is the activities form. The 210 is the resource change form. 213 and 213RR are our message requests and our resource request form. 214 is our daily status form, so that's where we document as our role in the EOC, what decisions, conversations, what did we do to help keep track of that. Our 215 is the worksheet for the operations section. 220 is our demobilization form, and the 225 is our position task book certification form. And we will talk about these forms in an upcoming section. Lastly, the Operations Section Coordinator attends all operational briefings, Command and General Staff meeting, Tactics meeting, Planning meeting, and Section unit meetings as well. So now we're going to break down each of the branches under the Operations section. So we have first our Safety and Security branch, or Lifeline. It's composed of several components, including law enforcement, or ESF 13, fire services, which is ESF 4, search and rescue, ESF 9. Based on the current situation, the unit leader for this branch could be a member of fire service or law enforcement. For ESF 4 and ESF 9, or firefighting and search and rescue, this person is going to be responsible for coordinating personnel, equipment, resources committed to fire, field, medical, and search and rescue elements of the incident. Hazardous materials is covered under a separate Lifeline and ESF. They're also going to coordinate with ESF 8, which is our health and medical, to manage personnel, equipment, and resources to provide best patient care possible and coordinate the provision of public health and sanitation. The ESF coordinator is also responsible for coordinating and carrying out the objectives of the EOC action plan related to general operations, emergency medical care, public health, rescue, and evacuations. ESF 13, our law enforcement services, is going to be responsible for alerting and warning the public, coordinating evacuations, enforcing laws and emergency orders, establishing safe traffic routes, ensuring security is provided at incident facilities, ensuring access control to damaged areas, ordering and coordinating appropriate mutual aid resources, and assuming responsibility for the coroner function where applicable. So under the ESF 4 for firefighting services, this person is going to report to the Operations Section Coordinator. Again, they're coordinating the prevention, control, and suppression of fires, coordinating with ESF 10 for hazardous materials releases within impacted jurisdictions. They're providing that fire protection and safety assessment of shelter facilities. They're going to be maintaining contact with the dispatch center to coordinate resource and response personnel, directing field units to report pertinent information such as casualties, damage observations, evacuation status, radiation levels, chemical exposures, etc. as it's obtained. They're going to assist with the EOC action plan, ensuring that all ESF 4 resources are tracked, accounted for, in cooperation with the planning section, as well as resources ordered through mutual aid. This person is going to coordinate with outside agencies and companies that are providing additional resources. They're going to coordinate with the logistics section to provide vehicles, shelter, food, water, sanitation, and other supplies to the fire department personnel. They're going to attend any planning meetings at the request of the section coordinator, and they're also going to coordinate with the public information officer to disseminate information and warnings to the public that might be needed, and this includes locations of shelters, first aid facilities, casualty collection points, field treatment sites, public health hazards, and mitigation procedures. If there is a search and rescue component to the incident, we're going to stand up ESF 9. This person is going to coordinate with the ESF 13, which is our law enforcement, on all search and rescue operations. They're providing information on the disaster routes established within the EOC action plan to local hospitals, healthcare facilities, ambulance services, etc. In the event of flooding, they're going to help identify health facilities and critically fragile populations subject to flooding and prepare to move those people from those facilities. We may need them to coordinate with local animal control to remove and dispose of dead or injured animals. And based off the situation, they're going to activate and direct the appropriate units within ESF 4 and ESF 9 and designate unit leaders, etc. This could include fire suppression units, technical rescue units, confined space and rescue units, urban search and rescue, swift water, arson investigation, or an EMS unit. So for law enforcement, for the public safety side of this person is going to direct field units to report pertinent information, including casualties, damage observations, evacuating status, radiation levels, chemical exposure, etc., to the operations branch. They're going to maintain contact with the incident command posts, coordinate resources and response personnel. They're going to work with our ESF3, which is our public works departments, to ensure that field units begin safety and damage assessment surveys of critical facilities. They're going to help provide those windshield surveys of damage, specially designated critical facilities, coordinating with field operations staff. They're going to keep the operations section coordinator informed of their status. In addition, they're going to coordinate with the appropriate units of logistics section for supplies, equipment, personnel, and transportation for field operations. This person will ensure that all ESF 13 resources are tracked, accounted for in cooperation with the planning section, as well as resources that have been ordered through mutual aid. They're going to coordinate with ESF 9 on search and rescue activities, attend any EOC action planning meetings as necessary or requested by the operations section. They're going to provide regular status reports to the operations coordinator and planning section, establish appropriate level of organization within ESF 13 to effectively fulfill the EOC action plan objectives. Based on the situation, they may activate and direct the appropriate units within ESF 13 and designate unit leaders as necessary. These units can include units such as law enforcement operations, coroners, security, search and rescue, or evacuations. Traffic control or intelligence or investigation as well. Moving on to the communication branch. This branch or lifeline is responsible for ensuring that survivors have access to commercial communication infrastructure for contact with emergency services. They're also ensuring that land mobile radio communication network is operational, ensuring public safety answering points are available to the public, as well as ensuring survivors have access to financial services. The person overseeing the communications branch is going to report to the operations section coordinator, and they're coordinating with outside public and private utilities, including cell phone, telephone, and radio providers, as well as companies that are providing additional resources. They're ensuring all ESF2 resources are tracked and accounted for in cooperation with the planning section, as well as resources ordered through mutual aid. They are also assisting with the EOC action plan and attending any planning meetings at the request of the operations section coordinator. The energy branch consists of power and fuel. This unit leader will be coordinating with public and private utilities, including electric, natural gas, and fuel providers, to receive an assessment of their systems. And they're coordinating with those utility companies and fuel providers to develop a restoration plan. The unit leader will report to the operations section coordinator. Again, they're coordinating with those outside public and private utilities and companies that are providing those additional resources. They're ensuring that all ESF 12 resources are tracked, accounted for in cooperation with the planning section, as well as any resources that are ordered through mutual aid. They're also assisting with that EOC action plan and attending planning meetings at the request of the operations section coordinator. The food, hydration, and shelter branch consists of 2 emergency support functions. Our ESF 6 is our human services, and ESF 11 is agriculture and animals. The food, hydration, and shelter branch unit leader. They are responsible for coordinating with the American Red Cross and other volunteer agencies that may be providing food, potable water, clothing, shelter, and other basic needs as required to disaster victims. they're ensuring coordination of mass care services to provide for the safety and well-being of household pets and service animals during evacuations and sheltering. They're also working with all necessary agencies to provide assistance needs and improve the safety and security of the commercial food supply. The unit leader for this Lifeline/branch is going to be reporting to the Operations Section Coordinator. They're ensuring that food, hydration, and shelter branch functions are carried out, ensuring that all resources are tracked and accounted for in cooperation with the Planning Section unit. They're going to coordinate directly with the American Red Cross and other volunteer agencies and organizations to provide food, potable water, clothing, shelter, and other basic needs as required to disaster survivors. They're going to meet regularly with staff and work to reach a consensus of Operations Section objectives for the forthcoming operational periods, and they are carried out effectively as per the EOC action plan. Based on the situation, they may decide to activate and direct appropriate units within ESF 6 and designate unit leaders as necessary. These can include care and shelter units, community-based organization unit, faith-based organization unit, animal services unit, cooling heat center unit, etc. ESF 11 is going to ensure coordination of mass care services to provide for the safety and well-being of household pets and service animals during evacuations and sheltering by coordinating with other agencies such as the Humane Society, Animal Services, vet hospitals, etc. They're also going to work with all necessary agencies to provide nutrition assistance needs and to provide the safety and security of commercial food supply by coordinating with other agencies such as the Farm Bureau, local farms, and other natural resource providers. The Hazardous Materials Branch is covered under ESF 10. They're responsible for coordinating personnel, equipment, and resources committed to hazardous material elements of the incidents. Remember, all other fire services are coordinated under the Safety and Security Branch. They're going to coordinate with our ESF 8, our Public Health and Medical, to manage personnel, equipment, and resources to provide the best patient care possible in coordinating the provision of public health and sanitation. This ESF coordinator is going to be responsible for coordinating and carrying out objectives of the EOC action plan related to hazmat, rescue and evacuation, and chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and explosives, so CBRN incidents. This person will report directly to the Operations Section Coordinator. Again, they're coordinating the prevention, control, and suppression of hazardous materials within an impacted jurisdiction. They're maintaining contact with the dispatch center to coordinate the resource and response personnel, directing field units to report pertinent information such as casualties, damage observations, evacuation status, radiation levels, chemical exposures, etc., as it's obtained. They're assisting with that EOC action plan and ensuring that all ESF 10 resources are tracked and accounted for in cooperation with the planning section, as well as the resources ordered through mutual aid. They're coordinating with outside agencies and companies that are providing additional resources. They're going to coordinate with the logistics section to provide vehicles, shelter, food, water, sanitation, and supplies to the hazmat team personnel. Attending any planning meetings at the request of the Operations Section Coordinator, and they're coordinating with the Public Information Officer to disseminate information and public warnings to the public. This includes locations of shelters, first aid facilities, casual collection points, field treatment sites, public health hazards, and mitigation procedures. The Health and Medical Branch is critical for a successful response to a large-scale EMS or public health emergency. This branch coordinator is going to supervise and provide oversight and management of the Health and Medical Branch. They're continuously monitoring the organizational effectiveness and modifying as necessary, ensuring coordination with hospitals, health units, continuing care, mental health, and environmental health within the county. They're going to ensure that all health and medical resources are tracked and accounted for in cooperation with the planning section, as well as resources ordered through mutual aid, ensuring that the health and medical branch function is carried out, meeting regularly with medical and health branch staff, and work to reach a consensus of the operations section objectives for forthcoming operational periods and ensure that they're carried out effectively as per the EOC action plan. And based on the situation, they may activate and direct appropriate units within ESF 8 and designate unit leaders as necessary. These sections include environmental management, emergency medical services, healthcare facilities, public health, mental health, etc. So our ESF 8 is going to assess medical casualties and needs, including the number of injuries and or deaths. They're going to coordinate with food, hydration, and shelter, our ESF 6, to establish medical care and ensure assistance is given to those with access and functional needs. They may establish and operate first aid stations for emergency workers as required. They're going to monitor and coordinate resources to facilitate tactical operations of triage, emergency medical care, and treatment of the sick and injured resulting from the incident. Coordinate with the City County Department of Public Health in the identification, setup, and staffing of field treatment areas. Obtain status of local hospitals and facilities by coordinating with our healthcare coalition. In conjunction with transportation, ESF 1, coordinate transportation of injured persons to treatment areas. They're also going to coordinate with the City County Department of Public Health in distribution of medications and other medical supplies to shelters and treatment areas as needed, coordinating also to implement appropriate disease prevention measures, examples, inoculation, water purification, pest control, inspection of food and other consumables, etc. They're also going to coordinate with the personnel unit to obtain additional health and medical personnel as needed. The transportation branch consists of our ESF 1, transportation and evacuation, as well as ESF 3, our public works and engineering. This branch supports emergency response operations under the operations section. They provide guidance on the initial size-up and rapid needs assessment, as well as preliminary damage disaster safety reports on the areas affected, damaged, and destroyed during an emergency event. They're determining the need and location of emergency access routes, restoration of critical services, and prioritization of cleanup and repair efforts. And this unit and branch will also support recovery efforts. Our ESF 1 transportation will evaluate and assess the safety and condition of roadways, bridges, and other public works infrastructure. They're coordinating movement and evacuation operations alongside our safety and security branch, and they meet regularly with the transportation branch staff and work to reach a consensus of the operations section objectives for forthcoming operational periods and ensure they're carried out effectively as per the EOC action plan. ESF 3 Public Works. This group is going to be responsible for the coordination of debris management and removal. They're assisting law enforcement with road closures, including providing electronic sign messaging, regular road closure and detour signage, and other equipment such as barricades and traffic cones as needed. They're assisting fire and law with search and rescue with the use of heavy equipment. And they're assisting ESF 1 with transportation route development. They're going to meet regularly with the transportation branch staff and work to reach a consensus of those operations section objectives for forthcoming operational periods and ensure they're carried out effectively as per the EOC action plan. Based off of the needs of the incident, they may activate and direct appropriate units within the transportation branch and designate unit leaders as necessary. These units include damage assessment unit, debris management unit, and public works unit. Lastly, we have the water systems branch. This branch, it falls under ESF 3, public works. They're coordinating with public and private water and wastewater utilities to assess damage to those systems and coordinate with those utility companies to develop a restoration plan. This person reports directly to the operations section coordinator. They're coordinating again with outside public and private utilities, water and wastewater, and any companies that might be providing additional resources. They're ensuring that all of those resources are being tracked and accounted for in cooperation with the planning section, as well as any resources ordered through mutual aid. They're going to assist with the EOC action plan and attend any meetings at the request of the operations section coordinator. Let's talk a little bit about the EOC forms that the operations section will be utilizing. So this form here is the assignment list, also known as the EOC 204. This form is utilized to let everybody know what the assignment is and who is assigned to do that task. So this would be utilized for our damage assessment teams. We want to know who is going to be on those damage assessment teams, who is in charge of those team members, what's their point of contact, and where are they assigned to go. This is usually going to be prepared by the resource unit leader or the operations section, and it's going to be based off of the operational planning worksheet, or the 215, which we'll be showing shortly. This is the comms list, also known as the 205A. Anyone assigned to the EOC should be listed on this form. This is a very important form because this has all of our contact information, phone numbers, emails, etc. So if somebody needs to get a hold of a specific person, they can easily flip to this page and find their contact information. If we ever had an emergency and we needed to evacuate the EOC, somebody's missing, this helps us with our accountability. We can then have their contact information, try to call their cell phone, find their location, make sure everybody's accounted for. This form is usually prepared by the communications IT personnel and with the help of the resource unit leader, and it's distributed with every EOC action plan. This is the ICS 210, which is the resource status change. So as we have resources that come in and out, maybe they'll need to have downtime, be on break. Maybe they'll be down due to a mechanical issue. We want to keep track of that time and know what resources are available and unavailable. So that's what we're going to use the EOC 210 form for. Our check-in list, the EOC 211 form. This form will be done daily, whether it be by paper, electronically, within another system. We need to sign in and sign out and have accountability of what personnel were on the operation for that day within the EOC. We will utilize the 211 form. Should be near the door to the EOC. Come in, you sign in. Before you leave, please sign out. That just helps with accountability and helps us with the documentation side on the back end. This is a responsibility of the planning section to maintain and ensure is completed at the end of each day. Our general message 213, so if we don't have a digital system in place to send messages and maintain a tracking of those messages, we're going to utilize a paper form called the 213. This just is a message form to go back and forth, just as a reminder, and make sure that we don't lose track of certain messages that are coming from the field into the EOC. It could be messages between units, between sections in the EOC. We're utilizing it to transmit messages. So think of this as a text message. I'm going to send a message from me to this person with this information. Now we have a paper form to track it. But again, if we have a electronic system in place, we're going to use that. But if it's not available, we have a backup with the paper form. Everyone needs to be familiar with the resource request form, or our 213RR. This is a form that we're going to utilize for the field to request resources. They're going to call into the branch leaders, and they're going to put their request in. We need to be specific. We need to know quantity, what size. There's nothing worse than saying, hey, I need a pickup truck, and you send them a small two-wheel drive truck when they really needed a 2,500 crew cab to transport and tow a trailer. So we need to know the specifics, so that way then we can order the right piece of equipment and not waste time getting the wrong piece of equipment. We also need to know when they need it, where they need it delivered to, all of that information. So again, this is the paper form that we're going to utilize if there is no electronic system available. This will go from the unit leaders to the operations section coordinator. They will look it over, make sure it's completely filled out. It's got all the relevant information. If it's missing something, it goes back to that unit leader to get the additional information. Then from there, it goes to the logistics section. They'll either approve it, order the equipment, whatever resource is needed, the personnel. They'll get that ordered, and if they need to get approval, if we need to get the MAC group to say, hey, we can go over our spending limit, or if we need to get finance involved, it'll go between those groups. And then the logistics section, once it's ordered, they will then send it back to the operations section to let them know, hey, it's been ordered. It'll be here. This is the ETA. This is where it's going. All of that fun information. So great form that is going to be utilized a lot during EOC operations. So the ever important activity log, this is the EOC 214. This is a record that details any activities that you may have done, any actions that you may have taken, decisions that you made. We want to document when, where, at whose orders. That way then if anything ever comes back and we need to track something, we have a written log of it. My hope is that we will eventually have a system that is digital and allow us to easily track all of this. But in the meantime, this is what the paper form looks like to maintain our daily logs. Each person will complete a daily log. They'll be submitted to their supervisor, and then that will be forwarded to the documentation unit for filing. Needs to be maintained for the entire operation. So the operational planning worksheet, or also known as the 215, this is the form that's going to communicate decisions made by the operations section during the tactics meeting. It's going to be communicated to the logistics. It's going to be communicated to the resource unit leader as well. So the way this worksheet works is across the top, there's all of those blank boxes. Those are where your resources are going to go. So think equipment, like I need personnel. I need certain trained personnel. We're going to put all of that information along the top. Now, as you start to go down those first couple of columns, that's your task, that third column in, that's your tasks. So if we need to say, send out damage assessment teams. So I now need, for my damage assessment team, I need this many personnel. I need X number of trucks. I need X number of digital devices if we're going to provide those. We need X number of personal protective equipment, hard hats, goggles, whatever we're sending them out with. we can now put all of those equipments and personnel along the top, and under a damage assessment in that third column, now we can start to go across that and enter in. The ops section can then enter in, okay, these are what I need in order to meet the objective of sending out damage assessment teams and having a understanding of all of the damage areas within the county by 5 p.m. That's our objective. I'm going to send out the damage assessment teams. I need all of this to send that out. Now, then resources and logistics will come in, and they will write in below what your need is. They're going to write in what they have. And then what that allows us to do is then how many are we missing? And we can take the information, and the resource unit can take the missing information and say, okay, we need 3 more trucks, we need 5 more personnel, I need this many other resources, and now they can fill out those 213 RRs, those request forms, and order that equipment and those resources to be there so that way operations can meet their objectives. So great form for those 3 groups to then visualize what the next operational period is going to look like, what do we need, and how do we do we have enough of those resources? Do we need to order more? That also lets us know if we fill that out and we have resources standing around and we aren't utilizing them. If we have them on a worksheet like this, then we know that maybe we can start to demob and release some resources that we're not utilizing. This worksheet is not included in the EOC action plan. This is something that can be filled out for each operational period. We can do it on paper. We have big sheets, laminated forms that we can use in the EOC. We can hang them up on the wall, dry erase. That's another way of doing it. But this is definitely a sheet that is good to use on an operation. So the 225 is the personal development credentialing or personal performance rating form. It gives supervisors the opportunity to evaluate what you did in the EOC, and we are going to do those evaluations based off of those position task books that you were assigned. Eventually, the emergency management is going to have some grant funding that is tied to us having those position task books, and it's just a way for us to show as a county that our personnel that are going to be assigned to the EOC are proficient and have an understanding on what their roles and responsibilities will be in the EOC. They're very simple task books. We can sign personnel off on those tasks during exercises, training, and live incidents. So multiple opportunities to get signed off, and just be looking for more information to come on these position task books. But the 225 form, after every incident, every training, we're going to work on filling these out so that way then you can get signed off on those position task books. Congratulations, you've just completed the position-specific training for the operations section. Next step, we have a quiz for you to complete. 15 questions, super easy, no trick questions, I promise. We're going to have you open a position task book. Hopefully, if you've already attended any of the other trainings, you've already been handed your positions task book. We also have some recommended position-specific training listed in that task book as well as on the next slide. And you'll have the opportunity to participate in upcoming EOC drills, any EOC training, and exercises that we may conduct. Watch the emergency management calendar for information on these upcoming events. So the courses that we recommend that all EOC personnel take, We have at a minimum the Incident Command System courses, IS 100 and 200, the NIMS system, IS 700, and the Response Framework 800. These courses are online, provided by FEMA, and can be conducted on your downtime. In addition, FEMA has an online basic EOC functions course that is another great course to take. And then as you get a little bit farther up, you decide that, hey, maybe I might want to be a operations coordinator. You want to have a little more knowledge on that ICS. There's intermediate ICS or ICS 300. That course is a 3-day course. The state of Wisconsin offers that multiple times a year throughout the state, as well as our G191, which is our ICS and EOC interface. So that's how the command in the field operations is working with the operations within the EOC. Both of these are great courses to take as a member of the operations section. Highly recommend them. They are available multiple times a year through the state of Wisconsin. Their training calendar is on our website. You can easily go and find a course that works for your schedule in a location that works for you. Thank you for attending today's EOC position-specific training for the operations section. If you have any feedback or any questions, please email us at emergency.management@eauclaircounty.gov.